Welcome to Dr. Freedom, where we give you the strategies, mindset, and tactics on how to elevate your practice and your life. I'm Dr. Bijal Patel. I started my practice in a Starbucks over 7 years ago, and I built it brick by brick to a multi-location practice with an aesthetic OR and a software company. I'm here to give you the secrets to unlock that time and freedom for you. All right, welcome to the Dr. Freedom podcast. Today I have a very special guest. She is my wife, Bijal Patel, and she is also a brand strategist that's world class. She's done a ton of different companies that are all over the globe, and we have a special treat for us in terms of she's going to educate us on terms of branding and what it can mean for physicians. So welcome to the podcast.
Oh, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
That's awesome. All right, so let's start off with branding. Like, why is branding important for aesthetic physicians, practices, and doctors and nurse injectors and everybody underneath that umbrella?
Absolutely. So it was actually really interesting. A study came out a few years ago, especially with the onset of branding being so important, and it's all over. I mean, if you've been on social media, you know you're going to see someone something. And they did this study and asked, what is the number one profession where personal branding matters? And
that's curious.
Yeah. I know you know the answer, so you're going to have to keep it hidden. But what ended up coming back from the people is physicians. Physicians are the number one most important profession to have a personal brand. And the reason why is if someone is going to trust their body and their life and they're going to get cut open by a surgeon, they're going to kind of want to know, like, and trust you. And so I thought that was so compelling that the audience and people really care about aesthetics in general. You see all those plastic surgery flops. You see people going to Mexico and ending up in dire circumstances. So personal branding helps to create trust, which builds a sense of safety as people anticipate moving into doing different types of procedures.
So is it personal branding or is it business branding? Which one of the two? Because that's like a common question that I've heard physicians talk about.
Yeah, I would recommend. So it depends on the practice and how long the practice has been around. So how big is the brand just locally? I would recommend if you are just starting out and let's say you have one practitioner who's at the actual practice, I'd recommend going hard on the personal brand because people just want to know, like, for example, want to know Dr. Bijal Patel. They want to know who is the person who's going to cut them open and is going to be doing the procedure. And so in that instance, you want to go with your name as your practice. And then you can tie in like Lift Plastic Surgery, your business brand. But people tend to trust people more than they do brands. If you're a multi-practice, your multi-practitioner location, you have 2 or 3 different doctors that are part of your practice, then I would recommend that you have enough people where the business brand actually makes sense and you can get traction. And each individual doctor should still maintain a profile because they should be working on their marketing to build their own following and be driving revenue and people back into the practice.
That makes total sense, right? And it's like, it's a very complicated thing, but it kind of comes down to, hey, what do you want, right? And what do you want to grow more and what's going to come with you over time? So like, now we've talked about, hey, who's branding important for? But like, what exactly does branding entail? Like, where is it used?
So I think the most obvious place to start, especially since we're on Dr. Freedom podcast, is when you're thinking about a practitioner, I highly, highly, highly recommend that you start with your personal brand and then the business brand is kind of in the background. The practice name is in the background. But that branding, what people think about it is your content and your social media presence. So you might have a website that's awesome. I'm sure you have some type of logo is what people typically think of a brand. Super important in the world of aesthetics. Everything aesthetic is driven by things that are beautiful. Imagine that your patients, your team, you care about aesthetics. So just like the Ritz-Carlton cares about the way their facilities look, just like W Hotels cares about how they look, Tesla cares about design, so does Apple. There is a psychographic amongst people who share the value of beauty. And I don't know if you know this, beauty is actually a human need.
What? A need?
It's a
Say that
need.
again. Say that again.
Yes. Beauty is a human need. It's not optional. So a lot of times, people are like, "Oh, it's just, that's a nice to have." But for the people who are attracted to doing some type of plastic surgery procedure, even if it's just something injectable and they're starting out there, these are the same type of people who get facials done. They're the same type of people who, like me, pay a lot of money. I will remain unnamed and anonymous in the amount of money I spend on getting my hair done, keratin treatments, this, that, and the other thing. So people who are aesthetically driven are probably the people who are buying Lululemon too. And so there's like a
Ah.
psychographic that's shared amongst the people. All of that to tie back to your original question. They think of your personal brand. Who are you on social media? Can I make sense of the reels you're putting out, the content you're putting out there? Can I get a sense of who you are? So it's not, I come to your office one time, you sit me down for a consult, boom, now I'm talking to a patient care coordinator and she's trying to sell me a package. I want to feel like I love my doctor. I trust him or her. I've gotten to know their results through their patients and other people like me who look like me and have sort of had similar ideas of where they wanted to go and what the results are. So if you think of social media, it's an opportunity for you to build a relationship with your clients on a day-to-day basis without them taking up your clinic time.
Oh, that's interesting. And so, is that only in regards like patient acquisition, or is there different parts, of where branding plays a role within the practice itself?
Patient acquisition, that's a center point because you're trying to drive in people who don't know you. But you have a great point. What about the patients who are already there? And oftentimes people actually forget that you already have a book of amazing business. And what can we be doing for those patients who are already loyal, who've already bought maybe one or two services, maybe if they've done some injectables, and now they're ready to talk about an actual procedure because there was trust
Mm.
built over a period of time. So then when they come into the actual practice is from the minute that they drive, they see your sign. So like even for brick and mortars who, whether it's med spas or whether it's like plastic surgery places, it doesn't matter. Anybody cosmetic related, you want your sign to be beautifully lit, beautifully designed. The minute they walk up to the door, you want this branding on the glass. You want to walk in, beautiful office space. We want to see the signage again, maybe some tagline, maybe something about the mission of like why this plastic surgery practice. Because I see so often plastic surgery nowadays it's just being shocked. It's being price shocked. And the reason is
Mm-hmm.
because everybody and their mom, including like dentists, are now doing injectables. So it's like,
Yeah.
okay, I guess I can get my teeth cleaned and then I can get Botox put in my face. And there's no sense of like who's actually been trained at doing this stuff. So you want to make sure they feel the sense of your brand both visually and the brand vibe from the second they walk in the door. And your existing clientele are literally your repeat people over and over again. They will buy more things from you. They will continue to upgrade services until they go for elective surgeries that hopefully are more of a package
Oh, yeah.
type of situation. They want to do recurring that's monthly and they're coming back over and over again. And then this is the true test of are they really locked in with your brand? Is are they bringing their best friends?
Mm.
Are they bringing their 1 to 3 closest associates? Did they bring their mom in? Is grandma coming by? Where's their cousin? All of your patients, if they love you, are interconnected with 10 people who likely have the same beauty psychographic because that's just how people roll together. So there's so many opportunities to fuse branding into your current space so you can create recurring revenue and referrals.
No, that's great advice, right? In terms of a practice that's trying to overcome that hump of getting people in and then creating that patient experience. How does branding like affect the culture, right? Because there's staff turnover, post COVID, all this other stuff has happened, in the market space, and then there's a lot more competition out there. So how does does branding help you attract better personnel or staff, or is it the other way around, right? Is it the staff that makes the culture, or is it the culture that chooses the staff?
I would say that's a really, really good question. And it's one of those which came first, sort of the chicken or the egg in that scenario. But I think it's a little more nuanced is that if we were to go into that scenario, the culture is set by what the brand dictates. And
Mm,
how culture is actually formed is based on brand strategy elements. So it is what is the mission of the practice? Like, what is your mission statement? And can anybody besides you actually recall that without looking at the website? So most practitioners I talk to, first of all, when I'm like, what is your mission statement? They're like, immediate is like, oh God. And then they're going to pull it up on their website. So if you're the doctor and you're the founding member of your practice, and even you have a little bit of shame or embarrassment around your mission statement, you put it in chat GPT or somebody made you
mm,
do it and you don't care about it. If you don't care about it, your practice manager doesn't care. And I promise you, your front desk person does not care at all, even a little bit. And so we start with mission statement and then we move on to vision statement. Those two things are completely different. The vision statement is the North Star of the practice. Where are you going 20 or 30 years from now? And then the final piece to that that's really important tactically is core values, which we call core behaviors. And so people often complain about the culture within the practice. It's usually a doctor complaining to the practice managers then getting down on the staff. But it's like we have to own the responsibility of where is this documented, rehearsed, recalled, practiced, and then rewarded. And if you can get that as a part of your system of how you operate your practice, your culture will actually snap into sync to what it is that you wanted from your brand perspective. What ends up happening from there is that when you're putting out your content onto social media, other people who are looking for opportunities, looking for jobs, they become attracted to the brand and they're like,
hmm
man, that looks like a really fun office to work at. Or,
yeah,
wow, they are so heart centered. And I love the fact that they're just like championing breast cancer patients and women and moms. And another practice might be like, well, we're into beauty, but we're into natural beauty exactly in the way that you see fit for yourself. We're not really into the kind of overly filled or overly done type of practices. There's going to be a type of person who aligns to that. Then there's going to be like your Miami vibes, right? And then that's going to be a very different type of person. So they're all totally fine. It's just knowing who you actually are as an aesthetic practice, defining that brand, and then literally people will come work for you because they're attracted to the brand, which means they're already aligned to your core behaviors. And then when they come into the practice, they're just there propagating what the brand is all about. So a great way to know this, if your staff wants to have t-shirts, hat, swag of your company name, and they want to like rock it on the weekend when they go to yoga, when they go to spin class, when they go to Whole Foods, like, and they want to wear your brand, that's a sign that they're proud of where they work. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah, no, that's awesome. It's great feedback in terms of actually actionable items, right? That we can take back to our practices to see, hey, are people doing this? Do they actually believe in the product that we're putting out there? Sometimes, I'll talk to other plastic surgeons that have started their practice 15 or 20 years ago, and they're like, oh, we didn't need to do any of this stuff. Like branding
Mhm.
wasn't important. They put their name on the building and they opened up shop and they said, hey, well, these are the services that we offer. We do all these things. How do
Yeah.
you think it's changed over that period of time?
Well, I mean, 20 years ago, people didn't used to PayPal each other. 20
Yeah.
years ago, you didn't sit around and like take selfies of yourself. That would have been strange. Like you just stood there with your husband or wife and like took a picture, and we didn't do that either. You know what I mean? Like we didn't have TikTok and that broke the world, and we didn't have memes, and like we weren't like you do you, I do me, woo authenticity. And so just like the waves of things change is like the fact that technology has overtaken our lives and social media is only growing in its power because of the like obsession with social media,
Mhm.
the fact that you can constantly be connected 24/7, 365 days a year, no matter what. We can't stop scrolling. It's
Yeah,
addictive. My freaking iPhone
completely.
notifies me, you have picked up your phone 100 times today. I'm like, oh, shame. Put it down for like 5 minutes and pick it back up. So just like the evolution of anything else, sometimes those old school practice people, it's like, yeah, bro, There were like you and Dr. Smith. There were two people in town and there were 400,000 people. And also like as like there was a lot less supply and there were the people who wanted to do it. So the supply and demand was totally different. So yeah, I think the competition has grown, but I also think that people want more plastic surgery. They want more of the injectables. They want all the cool stuff because of the selfies, because they want to think about how they look, because of Zoom. Like you sit on
Oh
Zoom
yeah.
all day right now, you are actually aware of what you look like. So I think all things are trending towards more and more of this and less of the old way of doing things.
All right, let's get to it. What does AdVital do for your aesthetic practice or med spa? Our current clients are making an extra $60,000 to $65,000 to their bottom line every month over month, because they're able to nurture their current patient base and also amplify their qualified leads. Now reach out to AdVital to learn more. Let's lead into like the next question I have for you essentially is like, how does branding get you to Dr. Freedom? How does it give you that financials in the other part? Because a lot of times some of the things that I've heard is like, oh, well, it's out of sequence, or I'm not ready for that, or I don't need that right now. I'm doing okay. Right. But I think that there's like a misconception. There's a gap in the market that people just don't know how to ask the right question of saying, okay, well, how does this all piece together for me to become free in terms of time, money, energy, and effort in doing the cases I want to do, treating the right patient population for what I want to do? Like, how does
That's
branding affect that entire stream?
Yeah, that's a really, really great question. And I don't think most people would think that it's interconnected at all. They'd be like, "Oh,
Hmm.
it doesn't matter. We got our logo done. Congrats."
Yeah,
That's like 10% of your actual brand, by the way.
yeah.
You did not win the race. The best way I'd put it is in this metaphor. Imagine having an employee who you do not pay, who works 365 days out of the year, 24/7, doesn't miss a holiday and doesn't skip. That is your brand. That
Boom,
is your
mic
brand.
drop right there in a sentence right there. It is clear as day in terms of that piece of it. It's having that extra employee that is working around the clock, right? And that's so important in terms of the messaging and what's out there right now, because times have changed. People's attention spans have changed, right? They've gotten shorter and shorter. They want the information right now in terms of that topic. Well, do you fit the bill in terms of the messaging, the cohesivity in terms of your website, your socials, all your the product of work, and all the things that you're putting together in terms of these solutions for treatment plans for patients, right?
Yep.
And it's like you've also worked with injectors and stuff like that. How is
Yeah.
that in that process, right? In terms of branding when you're doing an injector versus a practice and that piece.
I love injectors. They're so awesome. I love them because they are open to the idea that social media is going to make bank for them. And so when you
Yeah.
understand, like one of my principles, I don't think most brand people operate like this, but like I'm Indian, as you know, and but maybe the audience doesn't know that for sure.
Hmm.
Is if it's not tied to your top line revenue or your bottom line profits, I don't care. Like I have zero interest in it at all. Like it's got to make it rain. And so what I like about these like injector chicks, man, their hustle game is strong. Their hustle
Yeah.
game is strong. I have somebody I'm working with right now, and I love. First of all, I love her. She's so much fun. If she lived here, you'd be in competition because I'd probably just go to hang out with her because I feel like
Mm.
we're besties. But she works 3 days a week. She's got her two kids and she is crushing her revenue and her take home income. So she's about to blow up and she's got some pretty big business goals that she's got going on. But I wanted to kind of point this, I want to tie it back to something that's really going to hit from your previous question. So asking the question of like, hey, how does branding, how is it going to relate to me getting my freedom? How am I going to get time freedom, location freedom? Well, first of all, you ain't going to get neither one of those two things until you have money freedom. You
Yep.
have to have monetary freedom and you have to have a team of people who's creating operational leverage so you can get out of the practice. So I want to tie it all back home and this will make sense. The obsession we have with this little company called Apple. Sorry if you're
Yeah.
Android users. You just have to roll with me. Maybe imagine Tesla for a second. Tesla, Apple, Google. Imagine these companies Target. These companies oh my God, my favorite. How could I fail to mention Starbucks?
Ooh, yeah.
It's
Spend
probably
a
like
lot of money on
$7.
those.
I
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
Hey, let's not bring it up. So
Yeah.
they have my card on auto load. Like it's crazy. I don't ever want to be at a deficit and then be like, you don't have money on this account. We create a relationship to the brand. That's called brand affinity. So I know you have one of those. I was talking to a guy the other day. He's obsessed with the UFC. He
Yeah.
loves the UFC brand. And so thinking about different brands, you have one brand. Like some people are sold out to Costco. Some people are
Yeah.
Costco
They're
diehards,
diehards at Costco.
Costco.
Yeah.
And
Hmm.
I kind of get it. The Costco game is strong, but if you think about it that way, that's exactly what we're doing with your brand is using your personal brand in connection with your business brand. And we want to create a following of people. It doesn't have to be massive. It just has to be people who are so into you as I might be into Starbucks. So that's the relationship we're trying to build with them. And when you have that kind of relationship, you're ready to pay because you're like, oh, I think it's worth it. You don't
Yeah.
only just think it's worth it and you're willing to pay. You're willing to pay over and over and over again. You're willing to put your card on the file. You're willing to fight for it online if someone tries to talk smack about Starbucks. It's just like all kinds of things end up happening related to the brand. So,
Yeah, I
um,
mean, I think it's the experience, right? Like, I mean, you tell me all the time, like you're like, hey, I love my Starbucks people because they just bring this energy on top of they're giving you energy with caffeine in a
yeah,
beverage. They're always pleasant. They greet you with a smile. It's always like an engagement, right? There's that missing piece of like conversational engagement, in terms of that piece when people have been working from home or they work from, this and that. People love their experience, right? And so they're willing to pay the extra couple bucks. They're willing to drive the extra few miles and do the other things. Well, are they doing that to see you at your practice? Are they driving?
right.
Are they coming to see you there? Are they like even with this Botox stuff? Yeah, definitely. Like we're not the cheapest in town, right? We definitely aren't because we drive the experience. We do the extra little pieces to get them the results that they want and the experience of the interaction. The interaction is priceless for them. Sometimes we're the only people they talk to, right?
Yep.
Especially as people get older in age. Sometimes they're just coming in to chat. They're not even, it's like, they're just like, oh yeah, I had an appointment. I came in, just wanted to chat, this and that, have a good conversational laugh about
Yeah.
something or not, right? And they're like, hey, your hair's falling out. And I'm like, yeah, I didn't notice, right? But my kids did, right? But so some of these things, it's just like, it's just the humanity part of like the brand that's out there. And I think that's where, I mean, some of the stuff comes in for injectors or plastic surgery practices, aesthetic practices, any of these other pieces in terms of getting that freedom back is building kind of the brand. And I think identity has a piece to it. Like, how does identity play a role for you in terms of branding?
I think they're so interconnected that people don't understand that it starts with your internal identity first. How do you feel about
Mm,
yourself? How do you represent yourself? How do you feel about your own identity in the world? When I think you can associate that, you then can build upon what the brand is. And so let's take a second to clarify the difference between personal brand and like who you are as a person.
mm-hmm.
You are not your personal brand, even then. So some doctors definitely doctors more so. You asked the question about, hey, how is it different when you've worked with physicians like yourself? And then how is it different when you've worked with injectors? Physicians, because of the Hippocratic Oath and oh my God, the years of education and just this level, which is like, I mean, it's so important. Like I say in my business all the time, guys, we're not saving lives here. Like we'll get it done, but imperfect action. I don't want to hear my doctor, I don't want to hear my surgeon be like, imperfect action. So sorry. Your one boob is double the size. Yeah, no, no, no,
No.
no.
Yeah.
No, 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 no.
No.
We're actually trying to aim for perfection. So it's a very different field. And so when we're looking at that personal brand, doctors take it really seriously and really personally compared to the average person because it's your reputation on the line. It is your reputation on the line. So most doctors end up feeling like nervous, stiff, more stiff than they
Yeah.
are in their practices. They're
Oh
like,
yeah.
hello, I am Dr. Smith. I am here because your breasts can be beautiful again too. If you are unhappy with your sagging breasts, it is now time to come in. And you're like, whoa. Or it's so boring. And they're like, were you aware of multi-syllable word, multi-syllable word, multi-syllable word with what we do here in our practice? And we have innovated multi-syllable word, multi-syllable. And people are like, I'm like not a physician. This is so boring. And so physicians end up taking it so seriously. Like, I've got to be knowledgeable. I have to be reputable. I have to train the patient. That's like, everything has a balance. We want to feel that you're knowledgeable enough, that you know what you're talking about enough, but don't talk over our heads. So making sure you're not stiff, and it feels, if you feel uncomfortable on camera, it's actually hard to come into the office because now I'm going to feel uncomfortable because we're actually working on me. And the difference is nurse injectors, just because of their path, because of the schooling, the pathways are very different. They're a little bit more okay with just being their authentic self and not coming across so stiff. And they're a little bit more aware of like, the patient may not know all of these medical terms. And there's a time for explaining medical terms and teaching. And there's a time for kind of keeping it high level and driven to like, what does the patient want? Can we get them to their goals? What's the right amount of information that they need that's medically based? But more importantly, are we speaking to their fears, safety concerns, and outcomes and desires? Have we adequately painted the picture of where it is they want to go and how amazing they're going to feel after? So are we also speaking to the emotional side of that?
Yeah, so I'm super curious, right? Because for me, I've thought about this for a while in terms of plastic surgeons versus injectors, right? And how they approach marketing in that part of it and marketing and sales. And it seems like the surgeons and the practices, they rest on the diplomas, right? Versus the injectors rest on the desires and the brand. And it's like just two different focuses. And that's why I think injectors and that whole kind of other field of med spas and anti-aging and wellness and all this other stuff, they're just out marketing us because that's what they focus on, because they know that that's the brand they have to represent to then get the people to come in to trust them to do the next thing.
Yeah, 100%. I actually do think that the injectors, I've studied a lot of people in order to inform my clients to the next level. And they have more, one, a playfulness because they are not feeling like their life is on the line. And let's just make a distinction here because like, obviously I highly, highly, highly respect the surgeon and what the surgeon has gone through and did, and the surgeon's wife, by the way. And so what we
They've
want,
gone through a lot. I mean, ton.
what we want to do is just be able to learn from one another and pull out what's best and where we can glean from so we can make the doctor's brand stronger. But injectors, they don't have the like, your life is on the line with me. They don't have the same risks. So they're not coming to the same, they don't have the same amount of training, but they also don't carry the same amount of liability. It's that liability difference that feels really heavy. And so nurse injectors are down with like, they're doing the dancing reels. They're being playful. They have the whole office staff on lock. They got the husband in the background. They're looking like hot, like smoking hot, like coming out with the dresses and the heels. And depending on their look, all the hair, they've got the extensions put in. I mean, they are like, I look the part and you want to look like me. And so you should come do this with me. A very woman selling to women thing. So I would also make a distinction. It's totally different being a male plastic surgeon with most of your base is going to be female, just the way it works, versus a female plastic surgeon who has the opportunity to say, hey, I'm kind of that model that you want to look like and you want to emulate. Nurse injectors, for the most part, are female. So it's a female to female thing to be like, oh my God, you look beautiful. I would like to look like you. Oh my God, your lips are beautiful. Oh my God, your eyes. Wow. How old are you? Oh, even your hair looks good. Like even things they don't do, it doesn't matter. It's the sense of like, that's my hot best friend and I want to look like her. So I think where physicians could glean from and where there's an unfair advantage is like, oh my God, the outcomes of the results of what you guys could do is day and night. Like, let's compare a mommy makeover to getting some Botox done, getting some filler done. There's no difference. Like the outcome and confidence that someone's going to gain from being like, this is not me 20 years ago. This is a version of me I have never met, but I had this potential within me. So that opportunity to be able to get into your body, own your brand, which is what our podcast is all about. We're named Own Your Brand. It's not to emulate someone else out there. It's what if you can imagine your top 5 favorite patients you've ever had is probably your favorite procedure. What did they feel like afterward? What did they share with you? If you could continue to create that impact and those type of outcomes on more patients, you would do it all day, every day, and you wouldn't even feel like work. You'd be in flow. More patients like that would come in the door. You would be able to charge more because people are like, oh my God, that's my doctor. I'm going to Dr. Patel, the end of story. And they come in and they continue to propagate what you love. So it's all infinite. It ends up building on each other. So if we can get doctors to understand that your personal brand is not just something you outsource to your social media marketing agency, and you sit there once a week and you're like, I can't believe I'm doing this. I should be doing surgery. They'd be so much happier because the patient who ends up coming in the door is going to be way more aligned with who you guys love serving.
Yeah. And so for our listeners, if they want to learn more about branding and your company of launch, where can they find you? Where can they learn more about branding or any of the other things that you've talked about in the podcast?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're on Facebook and social media at Bijal, my first name, BIJAL.launch. So that's the easy way to find us. Or we have our website, which is www.welaunch.design.
Awesome. Thanks so much for being on the podcast for Dr. Freedom and giving so much value to our listeners.
Yay!
Yay! Thanks for listening to Dr. Freedom Podcast. I hope you found some value in this podcast, and if you could hit the subscribe button and share with a friend if you found this content valuable.